Professor Tonette. Magsiupo po kayo. Dekano ng Asian Center, Enrico Sevilla Jr. Dekano ng Kolehiyo ng Arte at Literatura, Jewel Naval. Dekano ng Kolehiyo ng Agham Panlipunan at Filosofiya, Ruth Custerio Rico. Dating Dekano, Jofe Santarita. Dating Dekano rin at isang kaibigan, Carl Sabrichea. Katuwang na Dekano, Tonette Rapiza. Pinuno ng Sekretariat ng Tri-College Philippine Studies sa Lusa Natividad. Mga tagapag-ugnay ng Philippine Studies sa tatlong kolehiyo, si Jane Tatel, si Lou Ocampo, at si Christian Muratilla. Mga opisyal ng UP Asian Center, kolehiyo ng CAL at ng CSSP CAP, mga kaibigan at kasamahan sa hanay ng kaburuan, reps at mga kawani ng administrasyon ng tatlong kolehiyo na nagbibigay buhay, nagpapaunlad at sumusuporta sa komunidad akademiko ng universidad, Pangulo ng alumni na kumakatawan sa mga alumni ng Asian Center, si Lorna Israel, kagalang-galang ng mga panauhin, mga magulang, tagapag-alaga, mga katuwang, at mahal sa buhay ng mga nagtatapos, at higit na sa lahat, sa mga minamahal na nagtatapos sa mga graduadong programa ng Asian Center at sa Tri-College Philippine Studies Program. I am deeply honored to congratulate the Asian Center's graduating class of 2024, as well as the graduating class of the Tri-College Philippine Studies Program on your patience and grit in completing your degrees despite the multiple challenges posed by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. You have balanced your responsibilities to your families, your respective offices, and for some of you, the broader demands of public service and artistic works. I also express my profound appreciation to the faculty of Asian Center, CAL, and CSSP for their unwavering support and dedication to your intellectual and personal growth. They have navigated unprecedented demands during the height of the pandemic, adapting patiently to online and blended learning delivery modes without prior notice, and understanding your personal challenges during those crisis years. I think we're not yet over it, not fully. Today, we celebrate your remarkable achievements and honor the mentors and staff who have supported you throughout your graduate school journey. Our beloved UP would have been better equipped to hone your intellectual and work-related competencies had the pandemic not thrust our academic community into uncharted territory. Nevertheless, I am certain that your academic and social experiences at the Asian Center, in CAL and CSSP, though impacted by the pandemic, have broadened your intellectual horizons. Whether you enrolled in Asian or Philippine studies, your classes, seminars, and discussions have made you acutely aware of the emerging regional and global order. This evolving landscape remains fluid, suggesting that the disruptive future we anticipated as the reason for changing our teaching and learning methods during many Zoom faculty webinars when I was still Vice President for Academic Affairs, that disruptive future is now upon us. In those webinars, I repeatedly emphasized that climate change, zoonosis, and other potential pandemics, the technology-based Fourth Industrial Revolution, that is more recently referred to as the Fifth Industrial Revolution, to highlight the inevitable interaction and coexistence between humans and artificial intelligence, the normalization of lies, fake news and disinformation, a crisis of democracy with a global drift of authoritarianism, and geopolitical polarization, with the South China Sea being a battleground of a much colder Cold War. These shape and define our disruptive future. We are collectively experiencing the impact of climate change, zoonosis, and the fourth industrial revolution in our everyday lives. Additionally, the normalization of lies, the fabrication of facts, and widespread disinformation are becoming alarmingly commonplace. This is particularly concerning, although we in the humanities and social sciences may have unwittingly contributed to its codification through postmodern arguments, which distrust grand narratives that claim to explain large-scale natural, social, and historical phenomena, such as the grand narrative of science and rationality, and the rationality of the Enlightenment, on which it is based. Because they are used, or they have been used to legitimize power structures and marginalize alternative perspectives. More worrisome than the fabrication of facts is the death of the belief in fact, which manifests in at least two ways. First, since everyone is entitled to construct their own reality, what was once consensually agreed upon is no longer regarded as such, but is instead replaced by fabricated facts in the citizens' constructed reality. Second, even more disconcerting, is the relegation of truth and facts to secondary importance, with feelings mattering more than the veracity of statements. The world of fabricated facts is more complex than what I'm talking about and difficult to unravel. Still, your education in UP has equipped you with some intellectual tools to critically examine and unpack your own ideas about the world of disinformation. Be mindful of the possible contradictions you might find even in your own thinking. I guess those of us in the social sciences who also see value in the framing by postmodernism might also be similarly mindful of our own contradictions as you begin sorting out assumptions underlying your views. Now, I move closer to your world as budding Asian and Philippine scholars and practitioners by citing the current colder Cold War. The protagonists are no longer as easy to delineate, given the great divide in the US and Europe between so-called democratic, outward-looking forces and authoritarian, inward-oriented forces that often seem to align with the opposite side of their country's position in the Cold War. We all know the Philippines is caught in the middle of this geopolitical struggle, and I can imagine the dilemma faced by some of your professors. In 2019, I attended the first of two Temasek NUS workshops on leadership in Singapore. This particular session focused on the ASEAN miracle opportunities for regional growth in higher education. The discussions highlighted Asia's central position on the world stage since 2000. With its economy poised to become the world's largest, we discussed China's increased leverage in regional and global political, economic, and cultural processes, the multiple power centers, now India, China, and Japan, including the discursive shift from Indo-China to from Indo-Pacific, from Asia-Pacific to Indo-Pacific, and ASEAN's promise as an economic community that aims for mobility among skilled workers for them to move around ASEAN rather than going to other regional economies. However, my biggest takeaway from that workshop was this. When ASEAN was established, people speculated about how long it would last, given the contentious issues among the countries. That it crossed its 50th year is a remarkable feat, but its future lies in ASEAN's ability to navigate the geopolitics of China, the United States, and Western powers, while remaining as neutral as possible. The discussion also highlighted the long-term crucial role of universities and people-to-people diplomacy in this endeavor. This takeaway reminded me of the programs some of the UP faculty from the three colleges had benefited from: the Ford Foundation's Asia Scholarship Program, the Toyota Foundation Southeast Asian Studies Regional Exchange Program, or CSREP, and the Nippon Foundation's Public Intellectual Program. These initiatives aimed to foster mutual understanding among Southeast Asian and Southeast Asian scholars who historically have cast their sights on the countries of their colonizers, or the North, for them to understand each other and build their scholarship around each other's political economy, culture, environment, geography, social movements, among many others. Against this backdrop, it is uplifting to know that a week before your formal graduation this morning, your formal graduation was actually this morning, the Asian Center hosted the 2024 Southeast Asia Biennial Conference on the theme Recentering Southeast Asia. This noteworthy event was organized in collaboration with a diverse team from different units within UP Diliman. From what I hear, the three-day conference impressed the governing board of the Consortium for Southeast Asian Studies in Asia, with one member noting that this may have been the best of the 5 biennial conferences held so far. The conference featured more than 350 participants, about 280 presenters from 25 countries, 53 packed panels up to the last day, and 7 plenary sessions covering almost all facets of ASEAN life. Topics ranged from philosophical reflections on empire and epistemology to methodological database concerns and empirical accounts of the region's challenges. No wonder colleagues from Singapore's Nanyang Technological University, who will be organizing the next conference, now say the University of the Philippines is a tough act to follow. So I congratulate Asian Center and our colleagues from the other 2 colleges and all the entire university who actually organized this. The success of this conference is particularly heartening as it signals Asian Center's recovery from the pandemic-induced semi-paralysis of academic life because of COVID, allowing it to fulfill its mission, which is to continue bringing the reality of Asia to the Philippines and the Philippines to the rest of Asia. The Asian Center is mandated not only to develop closer and broader contacts with Asian neighbors, but also to focus on and develop Philippine studies in collaboration with the College of Arts and Letters and the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy. Nakabatas po ito. Having taught research methodology in the Tri-College at one time in my past life, I am very ecstatic to note the production of 2 major knowledge products that deepen our understanding of our cultural heritage and our people: a cultural history of the Philippine Symphony Orchestra from 1886 to 1996, and narratives of the home of the Lawangon, which I'm personally interested in to better understand the culture of my mother's family. The equally valuable third knowledge product of the Philippine Studies Tri-College addresses contemporary geopolitical realities within and outside the Philippines. I was also very happy to note the wide range of interests reflected in the titles of your master's thesis. Heartfelt congratulations to those of you who painstakingly pursued your research and completed it, and to those of you who chose the non-thesis track. I would be remiss if I end my commencement speech by only citing your academic achievements and those of the Asian Center, CAL, and CSSP, without sharing at least 3 tips for your personal life. First, find fulfillment and wonder in learning continuously. Although your degree may open doors or give you an edge in your work in DepEd, the defense sector, foreign service, art, museums, or the university, continue honing your competencies to excel further in your work and personal endeavors. In today's world of qualifications frameworks, skills frameworks, credit transfers and equivalency, certifications, credit banking, there are multiple opportunities and needs like nano-badges and micro-credential certificates for retooling yourselves to better adjust to the evolving requirements of the labor market and better master the changing time frames and rhythms of individual existence. Even if you're not keen on acquiring micro-certificates, further cultivate the habit of reading. Keep abreast of developments in the country, the region, and the world, not only because you, dear graduates, are alumni of the Asian Center, CAL and CSST, but also to exercise your mind, your brains continuously. Young as you are, this can help avoid future dementia, provide a much-needed escape from the harsh realities of life, and uplift your spirit. Of course, it goes without saying that caring for your health is essential to maintaining a vibrant life of the mind and spirit. My second and third tips are shared in commencement speeches I delivered in the last several years because they have helped me immensely, although they may have been rephrased differently. Although I sometimes worry that these two tips may have been lost on young graduates, but I hope they will resonate with you being older and having more life experience. My second tip: each of us has a mission in life, or a series of connected tasks that we must discern from our experiences. This mission is not laid out clearly, but comes in disparate bits and pieces, through assignments, menial tasks, duties, significant challenges, small challenges, heartaches, and joys. It is delivered by many people, including those we do not like, those we may not get along with, who might not even know they are contributing to our mission. Given this big picture, we are urged to give our best in everything we do, regardless of the outcomes, because everything we do is part of our mission, no matter how small. Since our mission comes in bits and pieces, we must value patience, a challenging trait for the younger generation of multitaskers with shorter attention spans. Value diligence, perseverance, fidelity to work, and grit to continue despite frustrations and uncertainties. The mission's connection to the bigger picture will drive us to find meaning and purpose in all events of our lives, to aspire for excellence and to give our best in all tasks, whether they are domestic chores, academic work, extracurricular activities, community work, or significant work beyond your small communities, whether your efforts are seen by others or whether they are appreciated or not. In addition, we are encouraged to strive for the best, especially when the area of our mission has been defined. In his book Outliers, sociologist Malcolm Gladwell studied successful people over the last 50 years. He found that more than the opportunities given to them by the lottery of birth, it was how these individuals turned the baggage of their history into opportunities, how they continuously honed their skills, dedicating at least 10,000 hours to practice their craft, and how they used their skills to improve the lives of others and address the need of their times that spell their success. In other words, the future is not solely defined by the past or current circumstances. It is shaped by how challenges are met and turned into opportunities, by how we give our best to all that we do, irrespective of the cards we have been dealt, all within the framework of mission. Because our mission is not easy, and there will be many trials in our effort to strive for excellence, those who believe in a supreme being value prayer and the faith that goes with it. Humanist non-believers in a supreme being can distance themselves from the world and draw from their inner resources through reflection and meditation. Whether believers or non-believers, this practice of going into a sacred space has saved my friends and myself many times over in the half-past century, especially at the height of the pandemic, when I would wake up and I guess my blood pressure would shoot because I really didn't know, honestly now I can tell you, I didn't know how we would proceed. In the book Thrive, Arianna Huffington asserted that the idea of success in the modern world is usually anchored on two legs, money and power. According to her, however, this formula is unsustainable. She argued for a third metric or measure of success, a metric with 4 pillars: well-being, wisdom, wonder, and giving. Yes, giving or service. This brings me to my third tip. Our purpose in life is always bigger than ourselves, and it involves serving others. Our family, the people served by our organization, our friends and colleagues, our geographic community, for the nameless, faceless nation and the marginalized and its needs. For those who pass the portals of UP like you, a deep sense of mission is called to serve the people, the resolve to give your all in any circumstance, and the perseverance to strive for excellence despite extreme challenges is reflected in UP's maxim of excellence and honor. Not for honor and excellence, not for oneself, but always in the service of others and the nation. In Huffington's book, she quoted Renaissance Indian Rabindranath Tagore as saying, "I slept and dreamt that life was a joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy." Sadly, not all UP alumni live by UP's motto. Some colleagues, some of them my own friends, strove for excellence and occupied honorable posts for themselves and their cliques. I fervently pray that you will not be part of their ranks. One way to avoid joining their ranks is to nurture the life of the Spirit. In preparation for UP's centennial year in 2008, one of the faculty conferences I was tasked to synthesize affirmed the need to nurture not only the life of the mind, but also the life of the body and the spirit. Before that, our goal was articulated as nurturing, or at least one of our roles as the University of the Philippines was nurturing the life of the mind. By maintaining a sacred space where you can reflect, process thoughts and emotions, find purpose, and discern your destiny. Nurturing the life of the spirit is essential for maintaining integrity while facing life's challenges. A solid inner core is crucial for meeting moral challenges without sacrificing integrity for expediency. And there are many, many occasions where we will be asked to act for the sake of expediency. Solitude and reflection also prevent disillusionment, resignation, and despair, fostering a positive spirit to face severe problems and difficulties. A wise man once said that the limitations faced by people who try to make a difference, and since we are in the University of the Philippines and presumably our leaders, making a difference is something we want to be able to achieve. These have nothing to do with a lack of energy and capacity. They have to do with disillusionment, resignation, and despair, especially when we have a lot of vexations to the spirit, and UP offers a lot of vexations to the spirit, to the students, to the faculty. In our fast-paced world, getting lost in pursuing wealth, power, and fleeting material gains is easy. Amid future disruptions and countless vexations to the spirit, always remember your core values, who you are, whom you live for, and why you are alive. Reflect on your evolving mission, seek the grace to excel with honor in whatever you do for the mission, and develop the strength to pursue it. Once again, congratulations, dear graduates. May you strive to be your best selves and continue thriving in the rapidly changing world that's so fluid we don't even know what will happen to the elections in the United States. May you do your best to develop your respective life and work communities, the Filipino nation and humanity. May you find joy, laughter, and lightness of being, especially in trying times. May you move from strength to strength as you fulfill your life's purpose. May you be blessed abundantly and protected from all harm. And as UP alumni, may you keep the spirit of honor and excellence in selfless service to others, especially to the poor and marginalized. Kendall, taga-Taguyod, buhay po kayong lahat.